as well, even if it was less than half a mile away, rather than carry it all back if she bought more than one bottle, which seemed likely. As she drove back into the village she had just passed through, Annie couldn't help thinking how everything seemed smaller than she remembered it. Thorndale was busy with visitors now that the rain had died away. Parents were half-heartedly trying to keep eyes on children racing around the village green, while pensioners climbed slowly onto a noisily rumbling coach hovering awkwardly on the high street. A brisk, narrow river ran between the green and the high street, and people were sitting on picnic blankets or coats on the damp grass, eating ice cream or leaning back to sunbathe, faces tilted to the sun. Annie saw that the post office still survived, but an art gallery had replaced the tiny garage with its single petrol pump, and people were staring through the windows in search of a masterpiece or a bargain. The small tea room looked much the same, except for extra seating outside and a sign advertising ice cream from a local dairy farm. Beyond the centre of the village, Annie spotted a tall, square church tower peering down on everything else, and the canopies of the ancient trees surrounding the vicarage she knew was tucked amongst them. She drove alongside the green, overlooked by pretty terraced cottages and a row of larger Georgian houses facing the Royal Oak, the only pub. Thorndale Farm, set back as if trying to keep a polite distance from everyone else, was sheltered behind craggy oak trees bordering its walls, and she spotted a group of teenagers in the shade, heads bent over their phones as their thumbs moved constantly. She glanced curiously at a couple of modern stone bungalows further on, and realized that the village had altered while she hadn't been looking, becoming more than simply the farming community she remembered. When her godmother had died, aged 89, Annie had been surprised and delighted to discover she had inherited Molly Briggs's house, a small and simple cottage she had adored so much as a child. Now, Annie hoped that here she would find peace again. Nobody in the village knew she was arriving today, and she wanted it this way, still unprepared to voice the devastating circumstances that had brought her here. With no spaces free in the car park at the far end of the village, she headed back to Thorndale Farm, which had an empty barn whose entrance had often been used as a parking place by locals in the know, nipping into the village for a quick visit. Whenever the village was busy with visitors or the farmer wanted the entrance left clear, he would drop a couple of traffic cones in the gap to prevent tourists from taking advantage. Annie crawled along a narrow lane on the other side of the green outside the farm, dodging the group of teenagers who were now on the move with eyes glued to their phones. Outside the barn, cobbles stretching back to the lane were enclosed between grass verges either side of the huge doors, and she drove right up to them, not completely blocking the entrance. She thought the barn doors had probably been replaced since she had last bothered to look. They certainly appeared smarter than they used to. Laughter and voices from the pub drifted over as people lingered outside to enjoy the last of the sun, the river speeding away between uneven rocks as she crossed a humpback bridge onto the high street. She smiled at the children clambering down slippery stone steps to the river, shrieking as they tried not to stumble into the chilly water. It reminded her of the days when she had played the same game in this same place. As if conjured by her childhood reminiscences, she saw a woman she recognized as Kirsty Blaine, standing at the front door of one half of a pair of semi-detached stone cottages further along, and Annie waved to catch her attention. "Annie? Oh, I can't believe it!" They met halfway, laughing as they hugged, arms becoming tighter as they clung together for a few moments. When they separated, Annie's eyes ran over Kirsty's face with pleasure, searching for the familiar and finding it despite the years that had passed since they had last seen each other. Kirsty had been Annie's best friend in the village while they were growing up. Her parents were writers, her brother Ross several years older, and Kirsty's childhood had been eclectic and uninhibited. Annie had always envied Kirsty when she'd had to leave the village behind and return to school in Shropshire,